Hello and welcome to Central Coast Newspapers Video News. We have Adam Crouch, the member for Terrigal, back with us today, and he has announced a proposal to build a boardwalk. Give me the exact location for the boardwalk.
Yeah, well, firstly, great to be back, Jackie. Thank you for having me. Obviously, the boardwalk at Terrigal has been something that's been talked about for 20 years.
Right.
So, but never delivered. It's one of those discussion topics. Council had always been keen to do it, but never had funding. The idea would be to build a boardwalk, a raised boardwalk, between Terrigal Rockpool, effectively, around the rock face to the Haven.
So that's the steep and dodgy part, isn't it?
Correct. At the moment, you can't actually walk. So you get past the rockpool, and the cliff face sort of drops away, and you can't go any further. So, where with most beaches, most popular beaches, that sort of area would be accessible to all. We've had this situation where for 20 years it hasn't been, and people have been not so much. I suppose they got to the point where they were so used to being told, but nothing ever really happening.
Okay, now tell me about the reason why you've started with a petition.
Yep. Well, there's 2 points. I suppose at the moment, as you know, there's so much regional funding available from the state government. And as a local member, it's beholden on me to look at projects that benefit the wider community. And this one ticks so many boxes. Look, council didn't have the funds to build the project in its entirety. So I have discussed with them about how we could work together collaboratively with the state government regional funding. I'm needing to secure just under $3 million to build this project. And look, some people say that seems like a lot of money, but if you spend any time down there, you also realise the forces of nature can be quite extreme. So any boardwalk built on a seafront needs to be extremely sturdy and fit for purpose, built to the highest possible standards, marine grade, everything. So yes, while almost $3 million from the state government may sound like a lot, but it would deliver a long-term permanent solution.
So
you asked about the petition.
The petition is to get the community behind the project too.
Yeah, look, as a local member, I can then walk in with confidence and say to the Deputy Premier and the Premier, this is a great project. This is a fantastic project. The community is fully supportive of it. The majority of the community are fully supportive of it. And we want this to be delivered. And this is something that can be done relatively quickly. So it's not a project that's going to take decades.
So why now? I have to ask you the obvious question. It's an election year. You're a sitting member. Is this not a bit of pork barrelling?
Look, it's a good question. The answer to that is no. The reality is that the grant funding for regional projects was made available recently.
Okay.
And so I looked and thought this is a great project which could tick those boxes. So it actually has nothing to do with election timing. If the funding had become available a year earlier, I'd be having the same discussion.
And so, dare I say the word co-funding? Is this an opportunity for council and the state government to come together and fund something?
Absolutely it is. And look, as I said, my meetings with council have been very positive. They would be providing some funds. I can't remember the exact amount. You might want to check that with them. But council had already done the legwork on this. They've already done the preliminary drawings, which you've got copies of. They've scoped out the engineering required. They provided me with an idea of the cost. So this is not a random number we've plucked out of the air, because council also see the benefit to the community on this project. They just couldn't afford to deliver it.
So articulate those community benefits for me. Why is this so important?
Look, the first and main one is connectivity. Look, if you've been to Terrigal, if you're an older person or a person with a disability or even a younger person with kids, getting from the Haven to Terrigal is hard work. In some cases, it's inhibitive. If you're in a wheelchair, there's no way you could make it up that hill comfortably, and older people won't do it. I was literally in Terrigal again yesterday talking to the community, and the feedback is they won't go to the Haven because it's just too hard.
No, my kids swim.
Yeah, they're swimming around, exactly. Because they won't walk. These are young people. So what it also does, it's not just about our local community, it's what it delivers to people coming to visit Terrigal.
Right.
We know that thousands of people come up here every year, and Terrigal is one of their destinations of choice. So to have the ability to have that connectivity between Terrigal and the Haven, it also takes a bit of pressure off parking as well, because you can also opt to park at the Haven and walk around to Terrigal. So you're talking about the connectivity. Look, it's a great project. It allows people of all ages to access both sites. I've spoken to all the local businesses. They are fully on board. They think it's a fantastic fantastic project which they need, and businesses at the Haven benefit as well as businesses from Terrigal.
Now, what about the ecological side of it? Sensitivity to the cliff and to the ocean. How far along with the designing are you?
Well, council are fairly
Okay.
well progressed with this. They have done the ecological studies. Council will, from what I've seen from their drawings, it's actually cantilevered off the rock face, so it's not actually digging into the rock face. So it's a suspended walkway. I mean, you'd have to have it at a certain height as well because of the ocean.
Yes.
So they've done a lot of work on this, which is great. And it was basically about me being able to now secure the funding. And I've got to say the community response has been incredible. I knew it was going to be positive, but within a week we've had more than 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, jump online and say, yep, we think this is a great idea, let's get it done. And again, you know, the community expects this sort of infrastructure to be built. If you were anywhere, if you were Manly, you know, down the northern beaches, this would have been there years ago.
It'd be a given.
Absolutely. So the Central Coast should get its fair share.
Okay, and what about maintenance? Well, time frame. When do you expect that this could be delivered? You said short.
Yeah,
project.
the feedback I've had from councillors, they would like to start the project this year.
Wow.
I mean, I haven't got the actual scope of timing. Once the funding is confirmed, council will then look at a time frame. But it could be a project they could deliver in a relatively short space of time. And it also fits in with the project we discussed last time, which is the Terrigal rock pool.
Right.
I've provided council with $250,000 to upgrade that rock pool, which again had fallen into disrepair.
Yes.
So it lifts the whole area back to the standard that not just the locals expect, but people visiting expect as well.
Okay, so the boardwalk and the rock pool go together. The boardwalk doesn't preclude the future of the rock pool.
Not at all.
Okay.
So the feedback I've had from council is that they'll be going out for public consultation on the rock pool within weeks.
Wow.
Now the summer season's finished,
Yeah.
they've got the funding from me. Their next step is to go into public consultation, get feedback, make adjustments if they need to, and then get on with it. They'll be delivering that project this year.
Okay, and maintenance. Will maintenance of the boardwalk be council's responsibility?
Yes, it will.
And so I guess I need to ask them about the budget for that.
Yeah, and so and look, again, they'll be making out of the best possible products to ensure that maintenance is minimised. And look, there are some really good substances. I mean, I did the walk on the weekend between King Cumber and Davistown, and that walk through there, the footpath, the pathing they use is brilliant. I mean, the stuff is literally indestructible and has natural drainage in it because of the way it's designed.
So what's the process for a project like this?
Yep.
Does it have to be a DA? Does council?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, look, so council will have to go back out onto public consultation. They'll put the scope of works out, they'll put the drawings out, like they do with any project, be it Terrigal traffic flow, be it the rock pool. They have to consult with the public and get their feedback, and they may make some amendments to the design.
So what happened? Winnie Bay's also in your electorate. What happened to that process?
Yeah, well, the same thing. The public consultation had happened over a number of years. That project had been going on for years.
So the community didn't catch up with it until they discovered that perhaps it wasn't.
Yeah, and look, this is a situation where I think the first lot of DA, it was the first lot of public consultation that happened back in 2014. So it has been there. And Winnie Bay is a good example. I mean, there are some things being said about Winnie Bay which just aren't accurate. And you look at, council have got to manage that messaging to the community. There's going to be a whole regeneration program of plant life to go along that walkway. That walkway now opens up that access to everybody. I mean, I've done the walk at Winnie Bay, and unless you're a very able-bodied person, you couldn't do it. Yet, we're denying thousands of people access to a year-round walkway because of some misinformation that's been put out through the community. Now, the council obviously need to clarify that. The walkways are being poured, which is fantastic, but now they need to explain to the community that the plant life that was removed was invasive and non-native.
Okay.
They're going to regeneration.
I'll say hold that thought because we might bring you back in for a panel discussion about Winnie Bay, maybe.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go back to Terrigal and ask you a bit of a cheeky question. Is the boardwalk to keep everyone up off the sand in case it's contaminated with asbestos?
No, but what I would say is, look, I'm disappointed in the fact that this legacy issue with the asbestos has raised its head again. The reality is that we had so many homes built down at Womble over decades, and back then there were not proper processes about dealing with waste. In a lot of cases, homes were literally knocked down and built on top of. back in the 70s and 80s, with no real thought about the materials that were being left behind.
So do you reckon that's where the materials that have now washed up on Terrigal recently have come from?
Yeah, look, I'm not an expert in the field.
No, it's
but
tricky, isn't it?
It is. Look, but obviously, as soon as I was made aware of it, I contacted Gabrielle Upton's office, the Minister
Well, you
for Environment.
said close the beach.
Yeah, absolutely. Until you could ascertain what the scope of the issue was, and at that point, no one really knew. Look, I've got to say, the Minister was fantastic. She deployed the EPA at the highest level to contact Council immediately, which they did. The EPA were not satisfied with Council's original inspection of the beach and had them come back.
Well, that's the thing. We've had EPA and Council Wombrel side of that beach several times. We've been sent photos of Council burying the offending materials. You know, has anyone checked background levels? And how are we going to really resolve this issue long term?
Yeah, I think there are two parts to this. Firstly, it's the immediate remediation of the beach to make it safe. The feedback I've had is that most of the particulate, it's fibro board, so it's quite stable, so it poses a low risk. But in saying that, I mean, there are a lot of younger people who wouldn't know what asbestos was.
No.
So, you know, Council, and as I said to Council the day I was notified, they, especially with school holidays, so they needed to make sure they did more than was required, because we had people visiting that beach, and to make sure that it was inspected on a regular basis, any of the particulate removed and bagged up and collected correctly. Long-term, Council have management of the beaches. They have to make sure that the process is done correctly, meeting EPA standards. I'm pleased that the EPA are oversighting Council on this. I think they bring the level required, and again, I'm no expert. Look, the beaches, from what I've seen, the feedback I've had from the EPA are that the beaches are safe and people should continue to use them. Look, be mindful of the fact if you do find a piece on the beach, you know, be aware of what it is. It needs to be wrapped in a plastic bag. You can deliver it to one of the surf clubs. But Council are inspecting both beaches regularly.
Are they still finding it?
I think they'll continue to, Jackie. The reality is that, you know, those storm events we had a few years ago, you know, eroded quite a fair amount of the beach face at Wombrel, exposing quite a bit of former building material. Which
there's more there though.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's more at the ruins. I mean, Brian Glendenning said in the council meeting last week he believes there's old boats buried and cars buried and road base and lots of building materials.
And this is something the council will need to work with the EPA and also with the local residents too, whether this land actually encroaches on the private property, how they work constructively with private owners. I'm not aware of the extent of that at the moment, but council need to obviously monitor the beach on a regular basis, which they are doing, but also think about how they're going to manage this issue into the future, because, you know, there could be tons of this stuff under the sand dunes, and if we do have storm events, it will get exposed.
Yes, well,
and the reality is a lot of that sand ends up down at Terrigal. So by natural processes, it ends up down there.
Yeah.
So and you know, we had this scenario where we had a storm down there, and with Terrigal on the beach got washed away, but within months all that sand had returned. So you get that natural cycle of sand movement around the whole area there. So yeah, the reality is that stuff could keep washing up. The community need to be made aware, but the key to this is council communicating that message to the public as soon as it happens and making sure they keep people informed. And that really is the key issue there.
Okay, now I have to say that dreadful word, dredge. It appears that fantasy ferries are no longer taking the Palm Beach service to Adelong. And that's a big loss. Adelong and Wagstaff.
Yep.
That's a big loss. So Rebecca Gale Collins again attempted to get her fellow councillors to apply for the 50-50 funding. That was overthrown from the chair, and there's a very strong conviction from the majority of councillors, or there was at the last meeting, that they have legal advice that says it's your problem. So when are we going to get a resolution, and what is it going to look like?
Look, I've got to say, like so many people, I'm frustrated with council's position on this. This is another legacy issue.
They'd say they're frustrated with government.
But this legacy issue dates back to 2008-9, when the then Gosford Council applied to the then state Labor government for a 50-50 co-fund to dredge the channel. which they then received. I think it was Mayor Holstein at the time put the application into the then state Labor government. Now, which they then co-funded. In 2011, the state government introduced co-funding for local waterways. There needs to be, the delineation of this needs to be made very clear. So there are 3 levels of waterways in New South Wales. You've got active ports, such as Newcastle, Sydney, Botany, and they're fully funded by the state government. It is our responsibility to maintain them and keep them navigable. The next one is what they call a regional waterway, and that would be a waterway that has state government-owned assets in it, in which case we are responsible for maintaining it. And the third level is what they call a local waterway, which are channels like the Entrance and Ettalong, and the other 14 other coastal councils have waterways between here and between Victoria and Queensland. Now, since 2011...
So maybe Brisbane Water's status needs to be
Well,
upgraded.
it hasn't got state government assets in it. So under the scheme, you have to physically have assets in it.
Just for the purposes of
Yep.
people watching this
Yep.
interview, what's a state government asset?
A break wall, a groin, a seawall. A seawall is a good example.
Well,
None of those
previous
things
Busted
exist.
City Mayor and now Central Coast
Yep.
Deputy Mayor says there's seawalls buried under the sand at Ettalong.
Yeah, looking at that, it was a council asked the state government at the time to build them a groin or something. So it was a council's request that wall was built. So it wasn't the state government actually, it was the Department of Works built it for them on their request. So it wasn't something that the state government actually
So
did.
you're hanging tough on this one,
Yeah,
no
look,
compromise
look,
from the state government.
No, we've already compromised twice. We've provided 2 lots of emergency dredging for this channel in the last 12 months, $300,000 worth of work, with no responsibility from council. Yet council are prepared to apply for the Rescuing Our Waterways funding for the Entrance Channel, which they have now started dredging in the last few weeks, and that was the same co-funded program which every other
But
state...
they would say that's because the Entrance Channel is about flooding, it's not about a navigable channel.
Boats go through that channel every day. I mean, this is the issue. I mean, it's a nonsensical argument because...
Not ferries though.
Yeah, not a ferry, but again, it's a privately owned ferry. It's a privately owned ferry service that use council's wharves, council-owned wharves, to pick up...
Fees set by IPART.
And run by council. So
Okay.
it's all run by council.
All right, so here we stand. Are you going to go to the community meeting
absolutely,
on
I'll be
Thursday night?
there.
You are?
And what I would say is, look, the money's on the table right now. Paul Toole has made it very clear. The Rescuing Our Waterways funding, which is available every year to councils, is open right now, and it closes on the 8th of June. So council have every opportunity to
So
put in a
they
compliant
could put in their application
A
every
compliant
year,
application.
pay half,
Yep.
and the channel would be fixed.
Correct.
And that's the line in the sand.
Yep. And
Isn't there though, isn't this a bit of a political beach ball?
look, I like your beach references, but I've got to say, there are 14 other coastal councils that all work by the same process, and every one of them does not have this issue. And to the point where this council was prepared to apply for one channel and not the other. I mean, that is just not on. And the community have had enough. This channel was dredged under a 50-50 co-fund back in 2009-10. No maintenance was done on that channel post that, nothing. And this funding's been available every year, so they could have been doing maintenance work on this channel every year and being co-funded by the state government. So it's not like we're obfuscating responsibility, we're offering to help. We've been offering to help since 2011. The former council had no maintenance plan put in place for this channel. They've completely ignored it, and surprise, surprise, 8 years later they're back where they started from. And they expect everybody else to solve their problem. We are happy to assist. The money is there on the table. The minister has made it publicly clear. We've written to the mayor and said, you need to apply for this funding. You need to do the right thing by your community so you can cover the cost to dredge this channel and take responsibility for your local waterway, which is exactly what it is. The state government doesn't raise any revenue from that waterway. We have no public ferry services, and I heard the argument about we receive revenue from moorings and berths. Well, that money is put back into programs such as Rescuing Our Waterways, where councils can apply for the co-funding.
Okay.
So we are putting those funds back in.
Okay. The impasse continues.
Yeah, well, I said I hope the council's got till the 8th of June, I think it is, to reassess their situation. If they put the application, they'll be successful. It meets the criteria. And we've told them this publicly, we've told them this privately. And, why wouldn't you grab that funding, like every other council does, every year, and use it to clear their waterway? And maybe they need to look at a long-term strategy about how they're going to maintain this, because at the moment it's just been a knee-jerk reaction every 4, 5, 6, 8 years, and go, oh, we've got a problem. Well, it's not rocket science. It happens. It's a natural process.
All right.